and call the Mackey Group to order on this Canadian Thanksgiving, which we should have figured was going to have low attendance, but that's the way it is. So's notice is now the focus of what we're doing, and I'm happy to start. And we don't have to go the full hour. We could just read what we read and be happy with it. Maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe. I don't know, whatever the feeling is. The Overghost Orchestra's next. Moo 140th part. Nub's new facelift got old. War droned on, money stayed on top. The abandoned boy and girl went by every name known. Still, we bit the bullet and blew. I will be and I'll believe when I blow, we announced. I will be and abide by sound, my slave day done. We were back on St. Sufferhead's porch or promontory, some same tunes temporizing, reminiscent romance. The Pharaoh's black torso reached for and found. Polis plied as Eros again. We were the Pharaoh's black torso lost and found again. Thick reed stuck to a dry lower lip, a chapped kiss calling itself song, all sibilants. Some same tune's high cry. We were the Pharaoh's black torso cloaked, a call for cover, shot body, sirening alarm we lost and found again. Pantomime's loose raiment. So it was, or so we said, or so we played, canting say so, torn cloaks rule unrelenting, torn cloak routing the day. Could we but be a band, it would all go away, we thought, or we played like we thought. Could we but be a band, it would all be okay. So it was, we were in a band, so it was not so the same. What we cut we'd call a release what we called out for. It had been going on for only a minute. It had been going on for as long as we knew. Nub said to be having a conversation, no such one we were in. Unable to breathe, though we were, we blew, the crook of Nub's arm on our necks. We played with our hands up, axes untouched. Release, it was Tej's bet, would be sweet. Nub held my neck in the crook of its arm, the unworded song we sang. Nub took me down, but I got up swinging. Could we only band or bond, we thought, but it wasn't so. Together, as we were, we suffered. Original sufferheads for all eternity, it seemed. Wise ones and wounded ones, it seemed. The empathetic string ensemble skipped out. A gig in the Czech Republic, they said. So it was, we were on our own. Erstwhile accompaniment the ground we got up from, hot lights spiraling behind, pulling thread from string, string from rope. We'd have been, had they been there. A fraught way to feel, a fugue for the wretched, blows to the head as we blew, hands up, wind pipes crushed, we blew, over ghost embouchures behest. A high falsetto wind put parts in our hair again. We heard bells, an avid choir breaking glass. They hit such high notes, heads all honey house it seemed. Choked, held, haloed, we wanted to say, but came up short. Hot, light, popping sweat, no matter the high wind, no matter where we were, wherever it was we were. Hot light, away we dwelt elsewhere. It was never just there we were. Wherever it was we were birds again, each with our own song, each with a tutor song. Teach me, tutor me, we sang. Notwithstanding we couldn't breathe, we blew a Masonic windpipe. We resorted to circular breathing with, we blew l'ouverture, we called it. Church key, millet beer, wet, what words there were. It was an underground pipeline. We got our breath back through. Teach me, tutor me. The words there were. Thirst a way of knowing, not knowing. Gnostic more than Stoic now. Our first day in the land of the dead it was. Breathless though we were, we blew. Took a stand. We were taken down, we testified. A rest what of earth we remembered. All else taken away. So went on the record. What we read into the record. New tears for Eric. New tunes for another Eric. Commiserative. A posthumous release. Live in the land of the dead, we might have called it, notwithstanding we couldn't breathe, we blew. No matter we couldn't breathe, we blew, we kept insisting. Over goes tremolo, over goes vibrato, over goes cul-de-sac, come to and come back from, over goes conservancy, no end. In the heart of new not yet, west of Egypt, no matter, we couldn't breathe, we blew. No pitch, no tone, pulse only. A Tudor song, police batons taught us. Hexameters tapped out with a stick. Liner note. The idea was we were dead, already dead, always, the saying went, already dead. The idea was we blew not yet knowing we were dead. To blow was to hope against hope. We had air, no matter we couldn't breathe, breathe in, breathe out, no matter we couldn't breathe, keep breathing. The idea was we were a claim the dead made. The idea we were a strain put on the living. The idea was time turned back, put its back to us, back at some serial onslaught, back at us again and again. We convened around the corner from Coltrane's house, the Toussaint L'Ouverture Masonic Lodge. Acknowledgement hit. We bowed our heads. It was nothing if not Love's Arcade, and we wanted that. The idea we'd round it off with that. Live in outer space, we might have called it. Why they send us off the planet so soon? We wanted to know. Demanded someone say, got no answer. Lynch law's return, had it ever left, nightsticks and nooses. No new facelift now. Breath even would be breath, our eventual escort. Hydraulic circles we blew. Better born a dog in nub, we squalled, calling up step, even so, giant steps, no, not even steps, step. Steps said everything. All that would out. Hit, hoist, hover, hover, high, cyclonic, stare, step. Happy Thanksgiving to our Canadians who have just joined us. We are now on page 10 of So's Notice, and it's somebody else's turn to read the next poem.
I'll be glad to. Song of the Andambulu, 162. Siamese twins in an old book with birds between their legs. So it was we moved, so it was his behest. So it was we came again to Lone Coast, circling, seeking release. We wept for our estrangement as the water withdrew, all the mashup, all the run-up, all the withering, spins, dispatch. The waves came in and they went back out. Bitter beer took our tongues into the air. Tommy tilted his glass toward Pee-wee down in the ground. Better something than nothing, Sophia said. Was it really, we wanted to know? If in the end it reverted to nothing, something for a time but not for all time, was it really not already nothing, we wanted to know? What about life ever after, we wanted to know? The capital C, city, we'd heard about. So sparrows nested between our legs as we stood, we the walking dead, subject to summary execution. We could have been twins, given pause. Myth was maybe the way we kept it all at bay. Myth itself, so kept by Ithem, what to make of it no one knew. We stood at an edge, harvesting wind, siphoning light where light to be had. We stood where standing was a dance almost, stiff-legged lament a dance almost, cloaks doffed, caught in the wind. What anyone had to say dropped like lead, so thick were the tongues outside our throats. What to make of it, no one knew, or knowing, knew how to say something so athwart, nothing as well wavered, sooner not be than be. Precarity's claim had us wary, creation day done soon come. We wept at the graveside, wept at ocean's edge, walled up emotion let out. A shotgun wedding our rapport with death. We studied the sands report. The coastline augured erosion. All there was would go. Ragged shore, ragged wind cutting the clothes from our backs. Naked, no matter, we strutted fully decked. We who were stuck wanted the old book shut, a travesty of twinship, a taunt we stuffed our ears against, a book we tore the pages from. It was a dream of joining, gone wrong, but not our worry, a book we stumbled on. So it was we looked out at the lights of LA, packed inside a house, perched on a hill overlooking Silver Lake, lights of the carbuncular city we thought, desperate, we'd have done away with thought, jacked up, expecting nothing, hunched up inside our perch, high, not knowing what to make of it exactly the way the day caved in. Sporadic surmise confounded our late mood's descent, destitute wish to be rid of it, no end. All the dying weighed heavy. One wanted to steal away nets and nets, amenities, praise, and partake of the boon bodily abidance could be. Tedge's bet, Tedge's wage, Tedge's waiver, sweet satiety so soon, too sweet, Itamar explained. Thus the foot in the door death wriggled in, bumped up above it all, Tedge's bounty, millets, bitter beer washed away. It wasn't Yggdrasil we rode, if only for a minute. No horse of the hanged was it we rode. It wasn't Odin's mead cup we sipped, or even the thought of it. Smoke filled our chalice, burnt sweetness we sipped, branch bent or broken we lit. It wasn't we were riders, we were horses. It wasn't an ash we ran up and down, we left it in ashes. It wasn't we hanged ourselves. We were not the white north inverted, we screamed Itamar, letting out what the rest of us thought. We sat upside a hill, inside the scream, sipping Netzenet's brew, fret not, even so, said inside it all. Liner note. The idea was, it was Door Peep's day done. The idea was, it was a room so tight, we blew the roof off. To die was to let the air out, let the room air out. So it was, we turned a page, and so it was his book. The idea, we sat in a house on a hillside sliding into the sea. The idea was we sat awaiting what came next. Honey wine, honey beer, sweet leaf to take the edge off, Netzenet's medicinal brew. The idea was to repercuss, was its way, the butt end of a stick against the head of the one who wielded it. To hit will have been to be hit back. Up high in a church balcony we sat, not the house overlooking Silver Lake now. So it was, we accepted. It was other than before. Lay lounge we sat in, listening, awaiting, unlays, lift. A harmonium billowed, Netzenet's cotton shift, showing bones underneath. Such what lift there was. The bellows filled and emptied. We laughed, weeping, we were so moved. All the having gone and the will have gone, bearable for once. Sweet skein she pulled from So It Was's book. Deep Gnostic joke, deep twist and tangle. One foot behind the other, ever after, a stagger step, repeatedly taken. Graduate before, graduate again, so without end we wept. Sweet comedy, a cracked build, partridges cry. So we sat on the learning log. So it was eked out, echoic, sat schooled on what would be and what had been. Sat giving thought to the Anambolo, newly numbered among them before we knew, and soon set out with what bodies to reach or relate with, Soon sat reminiscing, mornings rue, borne out. Animamundis, intimated axis, followed our friend gone under the ground. Yggdrasil faded, fell away. So it was as we'd read, and so it was his book. Bones under cloth, a revival tent. It was new and old gospel again. Soon, one morning, all up over us. Soon, one morning, soon come. The lived, made over as myth, made more real. Ithmic, we so wanted it. Revival ground, gone off. The it of it, the wish of it. We saw body and soul. Will we ever leave childhood together? Susan Howe, Pythagorean silence.
This might be that book. Oh, this might be that book.
Go ahead, Susan, sorry.
Oh, cool, go. I didn't see you.
Ah.
Go. Okay, this might be that book. Moo, 142nd part. No sleep till we reach Moo, we told ourselves. Trek wide awake, dreaming, till we do. A wash of memory egged us on. Dawn found us north of Dread Lake's country, spoken to by smoke, waved at by flutter, demise made over as myth made bearable. Was all Itham, it seemed, kind of sad, holding on, trying so to hold on. The ones gone under the ground had a say of sorts, darkening the day as we pressed on. History was the poverty of time. Dead reminded us, time so untimely, him so new to our group. Bodily spirits recall, come soon, it so seemed, not to be known, but by reasoning, a kind of gremlin ghost reason we reckoned by. Something from Jed, the dead, might have said we called it, something bitten back between front teeth and tongue, something Jed said for the dead. So it was we bottled up and went, bottled up, kept on going. So it was this book gone back to, thumbed as we stood beside the road. No one picked us up, our thumbs out, no matter the signs we held up. No one on the way to Moo. No sleep till we get there, we said out loud anyway. No dreaming once we got there, we dreamt. So content we'd be, a book of so it was then, a book of so what. No matter time tore everything up, we heard Aja lament. Were there none that when we wondered, so inured against contentment, after it though we were. My foolish head, my headstrong heart, each of us let out, which covered it pretty much. We heard Huff put in. Later we sat around watching the Tolyu, saw many a miraculous thing. The glass invention we convened in front of one of them, a blind piper piping us home. Cop show utopia, cop show blues, review. Splat panoply on the Tolyu screen. It might already have been Moo we were in. Next thing we knew, Miles was on the box. Stella by starlight. I slipped away to my niece's grave, my nephew's grave. Miles's hesitant sound, a kind of tremoring. Ground pried open. purgative sky. Lay your body down, it seemed it said. We were in the sea islands, far east of Mu, but Mu was with us. It would always be and abide and bode well, we testified, tongues taken out through the gaps in our teeth clenched tight as we could, jaws all but broke. On our way to being absences, the road we were all on, we were there without knowing it. Not there before we knew it. Not knowing was what being there was. Not knowing bred in satiety. Want was all there was. The idea was Mu meant nothing at all. So the liner notes said, and we sang against it. Our idea was there, was a seed of something. The idea there was a seed or something, a seed of something there, but it lay dispersed. The viper life bred of slack focus, fevered pitch, had there been one, but we were not so blessed. Light gone awry, stray gambit. The elsewhere we'd have otherwise been. Made of it my gown. Made of it my gown, we read. The it of it, its glare, we guessed. Cloth we couldn't see the loudness of. Sorts. Of late free of the ear's address. Sight slipped away to where disaster lay. Stole off, but could only bang shut suddenly. My niece's arrested heart, my nephew's collapsed lung. They, the inventors of told you dust. Time bumps everything up, I reminded myself. The capsule we were in was headed somewhere. Natinset's name never not with me. The sweet spin her tongue's turn lent everything. Bee stings plumped our lips. We wanted to say, but broke off before we could. Though what of what we wanted erased, if not something, a seed of something. No way was the promise less the it of it than it. Forfeiture no option. Its option. I slipped away to where my niece and my nephew were, the abandoned ones of lore. The abandoned girl and boy sprouting prophecy. A long trill twisted their lips. They had their own way of talking. It rang so true, I wept. The told you so told us what to see. We looked with no thought of what else. Thus it was, the told you so sat telling us what to look at. A posthumous conceit came over us, an isthmic lift always with us, myth made of our travail. We were in that kingdom of youth again. We'd gone up against the grave and won. The sun's light poured in, a sublime confetti. Mu's new daylight begun. No matter, it was the kingdom of my youth. The Tanset's name, no matter. There was a church and a field of grass behind it. We played football on. 2 adjacent lessons we bought. It wasn't the it, but what the it was a stand-in for, a shadow box intaglio. Time bumped everything up. And why did the master of speech have to die? Ogotemeli did not at once reply, his chin resting on his knees, which were drawn up to his breast, his hand against his cheeks. He looked into the night of his darkness. He died about the middle of November, he said at last. Marcel Growley. Conversations with Otto Temeli, Translated by Ralph Butler, Audrey Richards, Beatrice Hook. Sorry.
All right, Fred, number
Okay,
164.
thanks, Susan. I'll pick it up from here. Song of the Andambulus, 164. Time the teller, I'm told. Itamar chirped, a smirk on his lips. Bird speak. Everyone got what he meant. He fell away mid-swoon, mid-surrender, a melt-away face on a wall of its own making, guinea pig imbroglio, truth blown through by drone. An aroused refusal rose up and flew, a suddenly adenoidal psalm. There was a time I'd have had a chance, he added, holding such time as it had been up for us to see. A crystal in his hands we stared into, caught by the wheel it spun, wafted perfume, not unacquainted with sweat. He went on. Inside the tent, her cotton shift had become a certain lady of the unraveling hem, it seemed he meant, a certain lady of the risen cloth. So it was we stood near the rail and were suddenly silent. No way to believe or to speak to what he said. Suffix nods time suspect. It wasn't that way at all, he'd later admit. Not at all incense and syncope, a certain lady of the lifted shift. For now we stood deaf to its appeal. The yarn he spun, the redeemed history of cotton, he called it, the sublimated cotton field whose pull we stood immune to. Salvific skein we'd hear none of, already as we were weary of it, wary the romance he made of it obtuse. We knew he'd gone up into the high harmonics, words like shift meaning more than he meant, the more it fell to us to apply. Each of us back from some brink he took us out to, a sad cavalcade of lives on the told you told us it could not have been so. It was an orphaning of the field. There was no way to know the why of. The allegoric lapse we kept our distance with. The rail we up till then ran parallel to. A certain collapse came down from heaven, Jed said, which we seconded, Itamar included. A certain collapse, a certain catastrophe came down. The silver lining inside a certain cotton shift Itamar admitted he made up. He told us he'd only been testing us, just wanted to see what we'd say. Times poverty hurt. He was hurting. We could see sublime cotton, pure displacement, shift all alibi. We plied him with numbers and dates. We talked him back to where we were. He was to what had really been, sweating heads and hands outside in the sun. Why did cotton come whisk us away? He kept asking, soon gone off again. Why did sugar was the question as well. Sweet release it otherwise was. Sweat salted our coffee, Jed explained. The sails were so white they were silver, the way the sun hit. The ships lurked like insects on the sea. Jed's dream was the tune we'd have been playing had we been a band. The overghost art nextet. Jed's nightmare, Sophia said it was. Whatever fit, we filled in the blanks. Cotton, sugar, tobacco, corn, oil, Aphroditean rhino tusk, gold, cacao, weapons grade uranium, cola nut. Why did any or why did each or why did every was the question. Not only had we been a band. Why did insect wings over water? Why did anything whisk us away? Time slipped away and we looked out at our pinched horizon, reeling from a certain something called history's head slap. I slipped away and I gave thought to Ogatameli and I scurried back. We plied Itamar with more numbers and dates, but we too were asking, why did any of it have to happen? Did it have to happen? We heard an Ivesian thrum and rumble everywhere as we looked out, a suddenly bleak Pacific at our feet. We were back on Lone Coast, in spirit, if not for real. A softening of the blow, glancing as it was. It might have been an oblique hit we fell back reeling from. Deep strings had at us, dredging the water below, and abruptly Atlantic Pacific, Atlantic Monterey Bay. No sea, not thick with damage, plunder, prey. A lateral dispatch of some sort it appeared we were on, some Atlantic errand. The strings whirled, reached, drew blood. The strings we could hear had a friend we wanted to say because, and even so, we wanted to say. Literal redress Itamar regaled us with, slave distress called cotton shift, a certain lady's translative cloth, a certain lady, less a certain someone than a set of aspects known as netzanet, obligatory sweat, gone sweet release. He was on a roll. He had friends. We could all hang. We could all relate. Played on by fingers, made of wind. He had had enough. Netzanet, the beautiful one, had come. No slave sublimity for him. He'd had enough. A set of aspects, an abstract trust he bestowed on hope. Believing less than wanting to believe, but we hung with him. Suspension's new brood, our crew. Jed ran with us now, we knew. A countering truth or a countering trust we let hang as well. The bare bones of when without, wherefore, why absconded with, gone it had never been gone. The news came in that somewhere, what could happen anywhere had happened. Bombs gone off in Boston, bombs at a kebab shop in Paris, a black man shot everywhere. So it was we turned off the Tolu. So it was we were doing performatives. So it was we acted at, so it was his behest. It wasn't we fell back on recursion so much as we'd never not been there. What went around, come around, and again gone around. David's Ethiopian heart took Ives's place. Time the teller, I'm told, had become a chant. Thus was our music Itamarian. We, the Davidic nextet, trying to pry the guises of time, the insult some called history. We were trying to make mate sonority, trying to make it common cloth. A set of aspects, a set of angles even, a certain asking what made up rescue. Thus we had at it, harped, come our way, what might. No inevitable is, no had to be ever, was we the non-prophets preached. It wasn't so much we wanted in as to bring in out where we were, not so much we wanted out as to be the wind broken, windows let in. There was never an inevitable is one heard the harp say, never not another is. The harp had it, never not a might have been, never an inevitable not. Time the teller, I'm told. We, the non-prophets, let out a bud or a buzz. We rode, beginning to be bloom, we thought. A time we'd had a chance, another chance, a spear, the eyes corner caught on and on. Eyes corner caught on. There was a ledge we talked him back from, he talked us out on. We could see a frustrated, consummated wish pervaded it. Appetite, enjoyment couldn't quell. Limbs at large and afloat filled Itamar's main man testament. His main lady's broadening body clung to like a raft. They were out on the rolling sea, silver linings, silver wings, silver bugs waiting out on the bay. When but not why, no wherefore, thus to take the edge off, inevitablest thought, dread thought unthinkable.
Annuncio's seventh last love song, Moo, 144th part. An astringent sip readied his lips and tongue, moo as in mouth, as in myth, as in music, Annuncia's prognathous kiss. He hung on her lower lip, sweet meat between his teeth, drank to the dregs in rat tavern again, sleight of limb, sleight of trunk, float away lightness, light surcease, his and her light bodies when they were young. He lay heavy, busted up, the ground's coming claim so evident she winced, her body and bones tugged at by the earth underfoot as well, telling weight, telling soreness, telling sag. There we stood looking in on them, we the conscripts, the chorus, the amen corner the moment called up. We stood lipless, musicless, mu as in mute. Love's leaving took our tongues away, another last love song, not the last love song, our silence meant and said everything. It wasn't Annuncio, nor was it Annuncia we were concerned with, What if it bore on us? What about us, we wanted to know. We would go back again and again, we answered, return gotten to us like rumor, like rut, like love's run itself, stone carriage, recursion we would taste outright. Choral insistence was all we were, empty, he and she now said, animation, a hummingbird's wing beat, a yawn, let out late. They said they would say anything, bite back nothing, so desperate to go on, last love song sung by rote. We looked out, lacking all wish to be done with it. The choosing and the chase are one amenity, it seemed. Backbite, though we did, gossip's hard acumen, scandal our solace almost. We were trying to be whole, trying to get home at Annuncio and Annuncia's expense, if it came to that, trying to make sameness home. Sameness, what condolence we sought, though there was none, projected onto them who we otherwise were. Gossip's deep identity spun. Why was the song becoming more about them than about us, we wondered. Rumor's deep engine, our identity with them. We, the Annunziati, like rays, raylets, silent now as though we laid out. Annuncio raised his glass as we looked on, raised only to be sworn off, it grew clear. Sip, he dismissed it with. We stood caught in mystic abeyance, mystic mixed with distance. The spite choir we'd heard about, we might have been, mute with a vengeance. Plump-lipped kisses bid goodbye. Psyche's loud sisters had nothing on them, the they who called themselves we, backbiters and syndicators Annuncio had heard about. They were exactly them as he sat sipping hemlock, truth serum, Socratic elixir, they said. Tight leggings under loose-fitting smocks had had their day no sooner come than gone, it seemed, looking back. He and Annuncia Eldrin, it seemed. In solidarity, we let our voices crack, a new wheeze late coming of age. Annuncio vowed he was done with it. The wingless bird he called hemlock, the bitter cup, hearsay was. We were that cup, he said, not so much the is when Annuncia stayed behind in Seville as the buzz made it hurt so bad. He was blaming us, we shot back, our voices back. No way would we buy it, we said. What about those things he'd called her, we asked. Witch, frump, hag, Hecate, the part about his tongue up her backsides. What about that, how she'd rather that than what he had to say. We strung our throats with fishing line, picked, plucked, bowed, all a sudden lump it seemed, how she liked it, how it shut him up. All the same he dreamed, Annuncia crept into bed with him, caught him unawares, caressed his wounded skin all the same, and even so, Jed's dream touched his, was what it was, caress not so much as caveat, warning he still harbored hope. The airiest of caresses it was, one with the covers and sheets, even so, a dream of light cover he dreamt. A July breeze it might have been, warm like Psyche's candle, a feeling sight found suspect, sworn off leg against his.
Song of the Undumbulu 166. I was pondering how to be where I was as much as I could. Pondering took me away. I sat readying my way, I thought, thought's way the world would accord with, I thought, thought's pearl wrung from a rag I squeezed wine from, rack, taverns, care, mine to keep. I was back in my brother-in-law's bank, custodial, mean, all mine, the press of young blood, assault-like traffic inside. I was pondering how to come back from that, thinking how to arrive was not to have been there already, how like loosed itself on where that wasn't, Rack's repercussive design, that it was like this, or that went without saying. There was an I that wasn't me, I thought. Null, the accidental set I began with, givens gone off and gone awry. There was probabilistic aggregate each of us was, I was thinking, a thought that no sooner arose than I flew from it, a feather, a simple breeze knocked back and forth. What I meant by each of us flew off as well, John, the prestidigitator's crew, it appeared we'd been. A wish I dreamed came true. I was thinking we were blessed. We'd arrest everywhere's ipseity, divine itineraries, ride by spirit, love's legendary horse. Nub's lamentations were not mine, I thought, thought's own fort, my refuge, mind my blue recruit. I was thinking about Kenny Dorham's wounded anthems, the way Nub's lamentations were ours, not just its own. Dub's true phosphor mix we cut into. All this, I was thinking, even so. Bodily decline racked tavern's eponym, ruined the risen, drank, and were drunk on. Glass they were lifted by. I was hearing the sound of breakdown on the box, ravages not far from thought. I remembered turns I took might have been wrong ones, flesh more prey than prize now, wondered what lay there next. I was thinking it was a molten box made not of wood but of plastic, so smooth, a breakdown it was, time's inconsequence retained against itself. To have been, but to be again. I was thinking it might have been a brass box, bent brass, for it to have been without end, without arrest, I was thinking, without aim, without amen. I was wondering what would accrete, what would accrue. I pondered hard, washed in Ha'atet light, lit by what was and what wasn't, Binus's acolyte, was's what for? Wasnesses, coil, and caprice. I was thinking sustainment, not summation, pondering late life, the chime I hatted my head in's exquisiteness, null, and so like no other salt sat on my cheek, a children jump rope song aloft as well. I was thinking moo as in mutt, a dog's life of sorts, it seemed, in some aspects, such life as I reflected on. I sat not yet lotus-like, legs hickory stiff, thoughts due extinguishment to come. 20 stuck to King Sunni's brow, popped up. Leon Thomas popped up, yodeling, a plum pit caught in his throat. I was thinking thoughts retreat, I thought, knowing no way could it be. Quartet ensorcelment had hold of my head, a nautilus hat, had it up and gone before I knew. I said, fret not, though the need for the assurance grieved me. I went from crying time to dying time and back. Why not the monastic Nanette, our new name, I was wondering, except there were more than 9 of us, except we were of the world outside. Outside ourselves, we saw ourselves weeping. A strip mall on the moon we might have been at, for all we knew. I sat wondering why one thing bumped another. Thought crowded my throat, I sat so short of understanding, thinking Qua'atet went without rendering, wandering more, the more I thought to have gone beyond thought. So it was, I came to think thought's removal, hickory stiff legs out from under me, floating up and away, anabatic dispatch. It was only my nth or my upteenth prolegomena, only beginning to say goodbye. I would walk sitting still, thinking thoughts exit, thinking so hard, I thought. A big tear fell into what turned into a flood. The one drop, it was one too many. Moo lay submerged underneath it. Salt lake, salt river, salt we sanctified, calling it history, salt incursion, salt declension, salt sea. Aja jumped up as Eleanor did. What was it with the weeping, they wanted to know. I wanted to say I'd been thinking. The pull of it, the weight salt secreted. Qua'atet, meditations, reset. Bright light of slave trade, bright light of wreckage, decapitism's bright idea. Heavy chin on my fist, heavy head in my hand. It was all one to me. Where we begin, I'd been thinking, no light lift the Atlantic trade, late morning, the weight of all awakening, it seemed. Never not pass through it, no matter where I'd been thinking. Never not, starting there, pass through again. So went my saltwater Mac. salt meditation, salt pitch I made, believer more than I knew. Or begin farther back, I'd been thinking, salt kept injury alive. I'd been thinking, no matter whatever start, it lived on.
Right. Song of the Andambulu, 166 and a half. Decapitism stuck to the end of my tongue. What to do but call it names, I thought. It wasn't thought, I was thinking I'd have answered had I been asked, not even thinking, I thought. I sat brooding, tracking a feather's drop, plummet my lush regard. I sat brooding, hen's heat yogic, so bent my hickory legs were, hickory stiff, transcendent, so flexed it was. So it will have been said, absent-mindedly rolled off my tongue. Least thought, last thought. My mock made believe I believed. Prophet shod in, cast off tread. Prophetry rolled off as well. Jelly-coated pill I bit. Bitness rolled with it, or might as well have. Quartets, broken jaw. Change was the law, I sat, reflecting, right foot nested on my left inner thigh, left leg pointed straight ahead. I sat, Buddhistic hurdler, musing, mouth open, ipseides arrayed in a row. I sat, I was thinking, thought's province receded, beauty's provocation revoked as our loins contracted, Edamar, Annuntio all us men, tantric hoist, I was thinking, thoughts adumbration, what ached and what resigned itself, displaced. We sat checking out the yogis in leotards, Aja, Eleanor, Annuncia, Sophia, every womanly wisp under the sun. I dreamt again we were away with no way home. This or that plane waiting, this or that takeoff missed, sweet crease loaded with ore, but to be absconded with gold would have otherwise been. Bent intonation intervened, a reed off away in the distance. Netsenet's name I no sooner gave than was given back. Brother B's wild ox moaned. I sat dejected, thoughts, appointment missed, disappointed, abscondities, eviscerate redoubt. I was thinking, thought had yet to begin. Thought's far emblem, a star too frail for sight, leotarded crux and curvature's ignition, thought's due advent. I thought no such arrival. What comeliness it wore thin. No ideas, but in them, I thought, cloak and connivance, the lords of that house, abode we abided by. Oops. I shall proceed. Monastic next tet exit, Mu 146 part. We sped away out of Stick City, ashram, sooner than we knew. Soon had never come so quick. Bent intonation followed us out as we left. Either that, or it was already there awaiting our exit. Some called it blue, but we knew better. Blue was only the beginning, barely begun. Began to say it, roughed up embouchures, bequest. So it came to pass. We were back on the road that wasn't, out on the rolling sea. We found ourselves, and so it was his book, and so it was. Blue bled into green, watery graduate, water jointed legs and arms, alighting, spider-like, rubbery limbed, inclined toward limbo, steep issue of the hold we stood in. Stood, but stood arched over, bent so far back, the floor was the earth rising. Lotus legs of a sort under us, it seemed. All things were possible, it seemed. No matter, we wondered what came next, wondered whether anything came next. No matter, we were living the tonic life, hearts lifted high as we went under, bent intonations, oratorio, requiem, karmic arrears or regret, meaningless history, Netzanet said, sweetness is maven, Tej inflectedness not to be ignored, salt's nemesis, we'd known her to be, sweet herbal musk, hit we took sipping our cup of peace. It came to pass, our voices thinned as we sang. We tried calling what it was we did, singing, voices pressed, pestered, it seemed. Sweet soul sanded, beset by desert wind, abrasions, angels we seemed. So it was we opted for gradiency, anciency, where worn in, so it was his book. Dust was an abstract elixir. Dust was a lid we wore. Tears welled up at the thought of it. We were nothing if not a strain. High strung, strung out, nothing if not a thread before. We pulled off the road and made camp for the night. We fell asleep. Those of us having third legs dreamt of yogis in leotards, light bodies all but absent, barely there, light and tight, breasts and asses all but not there. The yogis lay near but apart. We were feeling it, not the it, but the what of it. Questions jammed, answer, was is what for? Was it tomboy aura? We lay wondering. Quintessential girl next door, boyhood revisited, cusp we were hounded by, crux. Our pressed voices lay nexted, each its due furtherance even as we slept. Nothing had on it by Sunny's house of growl, each an autonomous thing, alive, looking up at the sky. Itamar, awake but unroused, lay thinking. Love's latest state come to at last. All the more felt not being felt, eventual, residual, virtual, some said it would be. An abandoned boy. He stood in line or went online, unclear which. A soup kitchen sense pervaded it all. Low-lying soul said as much. The house of growl we were in, mist on the moor's rough equivalent, said to have been susurrant, rubs redoubt. All I wanted was the growl house's approval. The Risen Ways tutorial we found ourselves in, never less near ourselves, never more nexted, furthers near rhyme, soul's low lay. All I wanted was a breathy bossa nova. Brothers in lag we'd be. Third eye summit, carnal eyes, what seen would have said beyond sight. A certain drift had set in, I sensed. Huthered, had I known what huthering meant, no matter, I had no sense what it meant. Such was the way of it, the way it leaned in, brothers, rhymes, reason. Further on, to sleep away from the road was all I wanted. A dream of arrival. Anansi's web unspun. What remonstrance, growl put up, I wanted none of. Not a wall nor a curtain, but a diamond-studded canopy. Eyes the sky looked in on us with. Beauty's pushback was all I wanted. A stern kind of regard the ground gave us. What pushback wanted? Were there any such I wanted? Thus to be known as finding our spot, respite, reprieve, reconnoiter. So it was. We lay in the house of growl. Another leaf out of So It Was his book. A certain something in the air, lay of the shown incisor, lay of the lifted lip. Snarl had its part, but we lay dreaming, adrift, blessed by angularity, athwart. The sound grew synesthetic. Roadside lounge. The leotarded yogis now wore loose-fitting sweats. An abstract aromatic obtained, all earth permeated by this or that sweating stretch, all hurt, all heart, all yogic heat. All I wanted was a sense of being furthered, shoved. All I wanted was that going on be meaning enough. All I wanted, given that, was going on. All the same, all I wanted was want's end. Going on's going back made less of. All bets off in the house of growl. All our best aim amounted to nothing, I thought. Irreverency's weight removed, all we wanted pertained to by would-be illusion, a low cloud's kiss we bore through. All was my remembrance of someone lately fallen, a word or a wand or a wish, as much ache as enclosure, would-be compasses, regret. And there we slept, on the side of the road, endlessly athwart all contrivance. Only what was real, we insisted, no matter, we slept and dreamt. All I want welled up inside each throat, every throat, mendicant wish made real, withheld, more real, squat rotundity, mere umbrage, all umbrage. Awoke. One thing to insist lay there. Better not to assume all's inference, I thought, mantric state gone into, gone out. So went the mounting flame we remembered, not so innocently gone, blown out. Both upright I sat, the wording went, and so it was this book. I was the it in Itamar, the it of it. A soft drizzle had begun to come down. He and Netzinet shared an umbrella, close company. Blessed be the rain, I thought. A match made in heaven? He asked me. The undercard, I answered. We laughed. Why monastic? One wanted to know. Next had not pellucid either. Questions abounded on the ground we called House of Growl. Contested ground, the cartoon it turned out we were in. A new sojourner joined our crew, went by the name Charlie. He and Sophia were on each other's case right away. Where but by misdirection go any of us, he wondered. Where but by application, she replied. No sooner that than they were at it, the flame mounting upward, mounted outward. Next it had been and would be a far cry from the ashram we slept. Charlie growled, finding himself among us, a rich tone to his voice. Where but by misdirection go any of us? His way was to snarl and snap, throw that out. Sophia took immediate umbrage. Banal, cliche, she shot back. Hers was the sound of sad brass, more hurt than it could say. The rest of us kept him at bay. The proverbial dog we let lay.
In the house of growl. I'd like to ask the ladies here. I'd like to ask everyone here, I guess. I don't want to exclude you, Fred, but on page 43, those of us having third legs dreamt of yogis in leotards, light bodies but all absent, barely there, light and tight, breast and asses, all but not there. The yogis lay near but apart, and so on and so forth. Do you feel that there's objectification going on here? I want to know honestly what you think about that. But you have to unmute to be part of the conversation should you want to be part. I don't, anyone who wants to chime in, I'd just like to get your feeling about it. Fred, you're smiling.
Well, what do you think, Paul?
I think there's some, I want to know what the ladies think, because, I see this from a male perspective. Those are third legs.
We're forced to see from the male perspective a lot, aren't we, ladies?
Yeah.
And so, yep, sure, it's objectification. I have to shine on quite a bit of the stuff we read in these books.
Yeah.
And, he's not apologizing for writing it. I can read it, take it or leave it.
Yeah. Linda, is that how you feel? Susan, is that how you feel?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of dumb, but that's okay.
What's kind of dumb?
The third leg thing is kind of stupid, but that's okay. I mean, who knows when he wrote the, I mean, I guess I can forgive a lot in writing. I can, so because there's some really good parts. So, but yeah, I don't know, this group that's traveling, you know, and the men and women, like in mixed company, as they say, then people pair off and then they pair off with other people and they're at that ashram. And I mean, it's communal living, right? Writing after 2013. Okay. Well, there's still communes and things right now and ashrams right now. I mean, it doesn't have to all be back in the 60s or whatever. Yeah, so I don't know. And there are lots of problems. We read about the problems, their fight and make up, and that's kind of interesting. The traveling group or troupe or band.
Well, I don't know. I think it would probably be quite possible to find analogous kind of writing from a woman's point of view, where she might refer to her non-third leg, compatriots as some other slangy thing she thought up at the time, and I think everybody does that, and right after that part, he says, he writes, "Was it tomboy aura we lay wondering, quintessential girl next door, boyhood revisited." It's just, I don't know, it didn't bother me particularly. It made me smile.
Part of life, right? I mean,
Yay.
the way he chooses to phrase it just points toward the things that can be things we're hounded by.
Mhm.
There's a lot of humor in this
Oh,
book
yeah.
so far, and why not, right?
Yeah.
It's a dream.
Yeah.
He's dreaming. It's a wet dream.
And it doesn't really go anywhere, so okay.
There's no happy ending, is that what you're saying?
If there is, he doesn't go into it.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I probably will later. The reason I think he's writing after 2013 is that that was the Boston Marathon bombing, and today was the Boston Marathon. So I was thinking about it because I had a friend who was running Boston that day. So for a couple of hours, the whole friend group was like pinned to our computers until she called somebody. That's all.
Right.
So what about this? How? Sorry,
the toll use?
isn't it television?
Okay, I wondered. I thought it might be.
I was wondering about this House of Growl. I mean, is that one particular jazz or blues player that he wants to invoke?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a technique that's used in jazz. I mean, I hear it in trumpet. Fred, you're a trumpet player, so who would be a good example of that?
Well, you can growl in any instrument, but yeah, there's a growl, and in fact, it's sometimes written into, it's written scripted in a growling trumpet, a growling trombone. Not a really common thing, but
How do you do it? Is it in the throat or the embouchure?
it's kind of, well, as I haven't played a trumpet for a long time, but it's a kind of both the embouchure and throat. It's kind of throwing your throat up into the mouthpiece. I don't know. Louis Armstrong, of course, was an expert growler, but
Did you get the other musical references in there?
well, that tonic life I liked. I thought that was, I was kind of like that.
What was that?
He calls it the no, this is on page 42. No matter, we were living the tonic life. So think of the tonic chord, that kind of as a chord, as I assume that's what he's getting at, is the tonic life as opposed to the life or the fourth chord or the whatever dominant. I mean, he throws these things in there, and they're so quick that, and if you stop and go back into them, then it kind of forces you to start analyzing the poem, which God forbid.
Terrifying.
I'm trying to nail down the musical references so I can go back to the.
Well, let's see, what did I mark?
There were a couple in this.
Yeah, there was Miles specifically.
Yeah.
Stella by Starlight. So
Right.
there's